Peace, 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 family. How y'all feel? Everybody good? Is everybody good? I haven't seen y'all in a long time, man. It's been a nice, it's been an interesting week on my side, But it's good to see everyone getting together. Hopefully, more people can come through. And what's going on, Rodney? Bianca, Marquita, what's going on? Damian, what's up? What's up? What's up? I hope everyone's good, man, to start off, man. What's up, Aura? Good to see Aura in the building. Let me see if I can get, before I get going here, let me see if I can get one of these free to play instrumentals to go while I talk. We got blocked one time. I don't know if y'all know what video or what video did it, but it was Rakim, Don't Sweat the Technique. And apparently they didn't like that. So they cut us, man. We're not gonna have those no problems this time. Where is my bad, y'all. That beat to me was a little too strong to let's see what we got. What beat did they let ride? I'm gonna do this one. I'll turn it down some. There we go. Okay. They might try to flag that one too. Yeah, petty, man. Definitely. Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook don't like that. But it's all good though. It's all good. We're gonna do what we do, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna make it do what it do. Yeah, man, let's jump into it. So as far as we're concerned, Black history is every day, right? Every day, nonstop, Black history. So last week we were talking about the Black presence in Asia. Now we're going to talk about the Americas. And again, this is something that's not shared. And Carter G. Woodson and the students at Kent State knew that we need to talk more about Black accomplishments, Black achievements, where we've been, where we've gone, what we've done, so we can better understand who we are and not put ourselves in subservient positions to other groups. And that's what's been happening over the last several decades. So we want to put an end to that. And so we want to go from Black History Month to where it's mandatory curriculum in the school systems. And if not that, we at least have Saturday schools where the curriculum is shared, where we're teaching our own people, our own children about who we are, where we come from. The African family is worldwide. You're going to find Black people wherever, any continent you go to, you're going to find Black people have been there. And so we want to help spread that information so we're not limited to 28 days in February. But shout out to the pioneers, Carter G. Woodson, who started Black History Week. And we pay homage to the students of Kent State who extended that to Black History Month. And we pay homage to them in their efforts. And we're going to extend that, continue that. So Black History class, like I said, we're talking about the Black presence in the Americas. The Black presence in the Americas. Let me just say there's a lot of information. I condensed it very short. That way we can just get some highlights into this. And then once we restart some classes, we can deep dive into this. If anyone is interested in that, you want to bring a young person to those things, we can really get into it. And I think we should. Shout out to everyone who's joining. I see Tia. I see Brother McQuinn. I see some other people. Good to see y'all. Bianca's in the building. What up, B? And yeah, man, appreciate y'all. Yes, like I said, last week we covered this continent right here. They call it Asia. And Black people are all over this thing, making things happen, making things work, building things, creating history. We covered that. If you get a chance, you can. The video is on the League of Intelligence page, and it's on my page. You can go back, you can watch that video, get more information. Again, these are highlight videos, only 1 hour long, if that, to kind of get you in the mood for more history, kind of get you hungry for it. Like, yo, what else are they not telling me about our history? So we covered this continent, gave an introductory type session last week, like we've been doing for the last about 4 or 5 sessions. And we highlighted this book to your left, with Dr. Renuko Rashidi's book. We pay homage to the ancestor for how much work he put in. That book to the left is thorough. What's ironic, though, is the fact that we're going to continue with this book. It's going to lead us to the Americas. And there's a book to the right of it called Men Out of Asia. And in Dr. Renuko Rashidi's book, he talks about Harold Sterling Gladwin's theory, which has been supported by evidence about Black folks in the Americas 50,000, 60,000, 40,000 years ago. And so he first puts this information in this book. Then he starts talking about some of the migrations Black people had into the continent. And it's also supported by evidence, which we'll highlight in just a few minutes. But this information you'll find in both of these books as we move forward. So 716, let's go to work. All right. So first group, diminutive Africoids. Diminutive Africoids. And so diminutive, I'm pretty sure that word is talking about stature. So we're talking about these people who they call the Twa. That's the most popular way to describe these particular ancestors, the Twa. There's other names up there, some derogatory, some regular, to understand who we're talking about. We're talking about the Twa. That's the word I use, the Twa, described as diminutive Africoids. Now, this group here is said to have migrated out of Africa into Asia and then crossed over into the Americas the same way they told us about our brothers and sisters who are the so-called American, not so-called, but labeled the American Indian. So the same way they told us they crossed the Bering Strait, you had this individual group do that 50,000 years ago. No group so far has been identified to be there earlier than Black people called the Twa. Not only in America, but you'll find the Twa evidence of the Twa all over the world. But we're focusing on the Americas. So here we go. Keisha, what's going on? So here's another picture of what the Twa would look like. There's different subgroups of Twa still on the African continent. This is another picture of the type of people we're talking about. Shout out to the ancestors. All right, so like I said, crossed from Africa, migrating from Africa. We saw what we did in Asia. So some of us didn't stay there. We kept going and we migrated over this Bering Strait. It was not ice at the time. It was actually, the water was low enough for you just to walk over during that time, according to the geologists, according to the scientists. That's what happened. So that's how you saw those people flow over into what we call the Americas today. And then they went all throughout North America, Central America, and South America. Now let's put some things together. We said earlier last week and the week before that, when we talked about bones, right? Skeletal evidence, we found out that the oldest bones ever found in the world of modern human beings, Homo sapiens sapien, or Black folks, 300,000 years ago, 200 to 300,000 years ago. All right, that's what we saw. I'm just gonna got my charger, forgot to plug in the laptop. So we saw that 200 to 300,000 years ago. Then the oldest bones they ever found of another group, which was the European, the oldest bones for them was 20,000 years old. Keep that number in mind, 20,000 years old. That's the oldest piece of evidence that we have of Europeans or anybody else besides Black people. Black people, 200, 300,000 years. As far as modern man, modern human beings, Homo sapiens sapien, the next group is only 20,000 years ago. This picture is rock paintings found in Brazil. They are dated 32,000 years ago. 32,000 years ago. So according to the numbers, according to the math, when we look at the bones found, the only group that was around during that time on the planet were Black folks. That's it. Remember, these are 32,000 years old. The oldest group besides Black people is 20,000 years old. That's not far back enough. So the only group that could have put these markings on this stone, which is dated back 30 to 32,000 years ago, found in Brazil, in the Americas, are Black folks. Took a long way to get there, right? We saw the scenic route, but we got there. We landed. 32,000 years ago, these rock paintings were there, or these rock paintings were put here, and they were done by Black folks in Brazil. So we're talking about we went north, central, south. This is just evidence of that. And then you see here, and I'll kind of remove myself so we can see the whole screen. 40 to 50,000 years ago, right? They walked over that. They called it the Wisconsin Glaciation period. We're talking about when they went across that Bering Strait, right? Or Beringia is what they called it. They had the Brazil rock shelter paintings 32,000 years ago. The only group around during that time on the planet were Black folks. What does that mean? Remember when Public Enemy said Fear of a Black Planet? Remember that album? Some of you hip hop heads, Fear of a Black Planet. The planet literally was all black at that point. Again, the oldest bones of another group, of a non-black group, the oldest bones of a non-black group are only 20,000 years old. That's it. That's it. All before that, you're talking about black people. First on the planet, first human beings, right? They also had charcoal elements of fires being started, et cetera, charcoal elements brought on by which connect with human beings. Those are also over 30,000 years old. Only people who could have done that, again, we're talking about black folks. Only people on the planet, black folks. Very important to establish that. And we're talking about in the Americas. In the Americas. Everyone follow that? Any questions, save them to the end, and we'll talk about it. Now let's get into those other migrations that we're talking about. So the Twa, 40 or 50,000 years ago, they come to the Americas. We see rock paintings, we see charcoal evidence, different things like that to support them being in this area. Who else did it then if it wasn't black folks? No evidence to support it was anybody else but us. You were here. So let's also attack the narrative of the Western world. The Western world paints the picture the only way we got here is by another group enslaving us, putting in chains, and then dropping us off over here to work in their fields. Not true. Not true. Not only that, we're going to kill a whole lot of other stuff just in a few minutes here. So boom, second migration, the Australoid migration. This is 25,000 BC. 25,000 BC. So from us, 27,000 years ago. 27,000 years ago, we see evidence of the Australoid migration. Why are they called the Australoids? Because they look just like the Australian Aboriginal black folks. Let me give you a picture. See that? This is an Australian Aboriginal. So that's why they call this group that migrated to what today's United States, North America, Central America, South America. They call them Australoid because they look like this brother right here. Australoid migration, right? They also have the bones, like the Punan skull, one of the oldest bones found in the Americas. This is of black folks. The skeletal remains they found of the Australoid migration, the Australoid people, are of black people in the Americas. 25,000 BC. That's 27,000 years ago. Pause for effect. 27,000 years ago, black folks. How do we know? Here's more evidence here. Study the bones. Study the bones. So, and that Punan skull also found in Ecuador, which matches the other skeletal types found by Arthur Keefe and another one, Ernest Houghton. So both of them talk about the different bones, and you'll find them in that area. You'll also find bones in Southern California, Colorado. We're talking about the Australoids. Colorado, in today's Arizona and Texas, Ecuador, and Brazil. You study those skeletal remains, they are of black people. When did they come? At least 27,000 years ago. We're talking about the black presence in America. We're talking about our history before Europeans came along and did what they had to do. Not what they had to do, but what they did. That white terrorism they brought. Let's talk. So what were we doing? Let's uncover some history. All right, I kind of let that screen up so we can, keep that in mind. Now we have another group, famously called the Clovis Folsom group. Asiatic Negroids, they called. 15,000 BC. They had Clovis and Folsom spearhead points. These are of African origin. Folsom, Arizona, to be specific. There, let's go. Fossil finds in that area, they conclude that they were black folks. Southern California, New Mexico, Central and South America. This is the third migration. First migration, the African Twa, 50 to 40,000 years ago. Second migration, they call them the Australoids. That's 27,000 years ago. This is the third one, 15,000 BC. Black people once again. You'll find evidence of this. Southern California, New Mexico, Arizona, Central and South America. Those spearhead points are of African origin. And then I just put, just just to kind of put some context, there was a major migration by the people we call the Algonquin, which is the American Indian. That was 2000 BC. They had a major migration to the Americas. Most people kind of know about that group. And then you have the Eskimo, the Inuit migration, 500 BC. Right? So that's about 2,500 years ago. You see the Eskimo. So that's just kind of a rundown of the migrations of how Black folk got to the Americas. This isn't going to seem, because the only reason why you might feel it's a stretch is if you are still going off of the Western time frame, the Western educational view of how we got where we got. When you start doing the study outside of the Western world, and we know we kind of went into why they teach the way they teach, but if not, we can cover that later on. You'll start to uncover some things and discover, wait a second, same way Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, we found out a whole lot more truth in addition to that. And so this seemed like a stretch. Maybe it's because maybe some of us think that Black people never left the African continent. That's why it was important to cover Asia first. You saw all along what they call the Black Belt. All along that area, you found Black people all across Asia. We saw that. So it shouldn't be a stretch to believe they simply crossed over, same way they said the American Indian did. Shouldn't be a stretch, in my opinion. We'll talk about that in Q&A when we get to it. Here's a picture of what Black folk look like in Asia, around that coast, that Micronesia, Polynesia, all on that coast. So this is what they say Black folk would have looked, what they looked like back then. This is the comparison they make. The so-called Asiatic Negro, right? All right, so that's that part. Again, these are highlights. I'm a enlarge my screen just for a second so I can show you some of the books that we're talking about, where we're getting our reference points. Not only that book we showed you before with Dr. Renuka Oshidi, Black Presence in Asia, we also have They Came Before Columbus. They Came Before Columbus was one book. We also have Africa and the Discovery of America that you can get, that we're pulling from. Come on, we ain't just pulling this stuff out of thin air. We're studying the scholars who put in the work. What else? Don Voyage, the Black African Discovery of America. Come on, Tyrone, we ain't playing, right? Let's talk. And here's another one. I can't wait. I haven't got a chance to really deep dive into this one, right? Look at that title. The First Americans Were Africans. This is the third edition, I believe, by David Imhotep. So we're going Imhotep. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into this. Well, not now, but down the road, we're going to get into this more and combine it with some of this information. The information you're about to see mainly is going to come from They Came Before Columbus. Excellent book. Excellent book. And when I say excellent, I'm talking about the information that's provided. Because some books, well, never mind. I was going to say it can be a tough read, Tyra. It could be kind of information heavy and boring sometimes, but the information is fire. Specifically, the ninth chapter in this book. The ninth chapter is when we really start to heat up in that book. So the Olmecs, we talked about the migrations into the Americas. Now we're talking about civilization in the Americas. And when you start talking about civilization, first civilization, you're talking about what they call the Olmecs, which is a broad term because it doesn't symbolize one specific group, but we'll get into that in just a few minutes. This right here is Matthew Sterling. Mr. Sterling in around 1938, he's in Tres Zapatas in today's Mexico, I believe, in that area. And the villagers are telling him that a long time ago, they saw a giant statue, looked like a head with a helmet, but it was so big they couldn't unearth it, so they left it there. And they've been talking about it ever since. So he decided to check it out. So Mr. Sterling goes in this area here, Tres Zapatas. I think I'm pronouncing that right. That's the area it's called now. But in that area is where he sent a digging expedition the next year. So 1939. So 1939, He goes to this area and he uncovers what is now known as one of, I believe, can't remember how many there are, maybe 12 to 16 Olmec heads. And we are not a blind people, right? We have eyes, we see. We know exactly who and what that is right there, right? Plain as day. Let me give you some scale in the next picture of how big this is. So most of these Olmec heads are 8 to 9 feet. They weigh about 10 tons. And a lot of them are heads of black folks, mainly soldiers. And when they found them, the way they found them, both in Tres Zapatas and La Venta, most of the Negro heads were found in La Venta. They were facing the east, which is back towards the African continent. So they kind of think that was intentional. But these are the Olmec heads. When these things were discovered, it just on the higher educational level, I guess education that doesn't affect the school system, it shook everything up because it changed everything. Because the narrative was black folks were not here. We were on the African continent and we never left. This changes everything. And you can't say they're of slaves because who in the world, what people carves out giant sculptor heads of black folk like this or people they're enslaving? It doesn't make any sense. What's up, Kelly? What's going on? Yeah, so here's some more. Here's some more of these Olmec heads that they found. And these Olmec heads are dated back to about 800 BC. So we're talking about 800 BC. You have these particular giant sculptors. What would you call these, Tyrone?
I was calling them the Olmec.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Olmec heads. There you go. Now take a look at this one. That helmet that he's wearing matches the helmet that they found that your Nubian ancestors were wearing during that time. So this is around the 25th dynasty. Taharka, Pianki, obviously black African kings who had taken over ancient Kemet, but those helmets are the exact replica of the helmets worn in Nubia, in the Nile Valley, in Kush, in Kemet. So what are we saying? Are we saying that Africans came from that particular part of Africa and found their way all the way into the Americas at that time? Stay tuned. Stay tuned, right? What do you mean? Did they build ships? Maybe they did. We're gonna find out, right? We're gonna find out. And then just in case there's any controversy along with these Olmec heads, this particular one is called the El Negro. The El Negro. Now take a look here. Let me get myself out the way. Take a look at this. Now you tell me if that's. I don't even have to say it. I mean, we know who that is. We know what that is, right? So, yeah. I'll move to the next slide. And then on top of that, now not only did they find the Olmec heads, they also find African artifacts dated before 1492 and from 500 AD, 200 BC. There's all types of different years that they found, but all before Europeans came to the continent. But this is pretty obvious too. Not only did they find a few artifacts, but there's over 60,000 artifacts of African origin found in the Americas dated before 1492. So we were here. It's obvious. I mean, there's so much evidence in aggregate that's undeniable. You can only nitpick individual things, but so much. When you add it all together, what can you do? We have skeletal evidence of 3 migrations. We have African artifacts. We have giant Olmec heads. Look at this. Look at this. This changes everything. This type of history, this understanding needs to be spread out, needs to be spread to our people. So we can understand who we are. We circumnavigated the entire globe. There's no place you've gone and you're a stranger. Doesn't exist. And here goes some more. Some of the skulls from this particular region. I can't pronounce the first one or the second one really, but those two, what's that? Cerro de las Mesas and Monte Alban showed to a different degree a clear prevalence of the total Negroid pattern. It's talking about the skulls that were studied. Polish craniologist. Right? Next screen. Skeletons have also been unearthed in pre-Columbian layers in the valley of the Pecos River that flows through Texas and New Mexico and empties into the Rio Grande of the Gulf of Mexico. Professor Hooton, a physical anthropologist, concludes the Pecos skull resemble most closely the crania of Negro groups coming from Africa, where Negroes commonly have perceptible infusion of hematic blood. Who cares about the hematic blood part? But it's obvious when they study the skulls. We see it's black folks in the Americas. You were here. North America, Central America, South America, you're here. Caribbean, you're here. Evidence supports it 100%. 100%. Know thyself, they say. This is the area. So remember, that same area became the Mayan area and the Aztec. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I will point this book out right here. This book's going to deep dive into that. I already know that for a fact. Can y'all see that? Let me make myself big here. Boom. This book right here is going to deep dive. It's going to be some interesting information when we eventually get to that. That's down the road another time though, when we deep dive. All right. So the same area is what we're talking about. Now we're talking about Monte Album. They have at least 160 of these bas reliefs of African peoples on them. There's about 160 found in this area. Monte Album. We're talking about the same area where the Aztecs were and the Mayans. 160 artifacts of African folks found in that area. Looking just like these ones right here. And this is the area they're talking about when they're talking about Monte Album. And notice you'll see like pyramid shapes. We're going to talk about that. Nubia, black folks, has had the most pyramids in the world, over 300, more than ancient Egypt, which is black folks anyway, but more than them, the most you'll find was in Nubia or Kush, today's Sudan. Step pyramid and all. We'll talk about that. This is like an overhead view of that particular area. Again, you found several thousand artifacts, including 160 bas reliefs of those African people in this area. D-Mac, what's going on, family? All right. So now let's talk about and try to piece some things together with the Nile Valley, since we've seen some evidence of that and the Americas. Can y'all see this? I'm hoping you can see it. It's a little faded on this, but that picture you're seeing is the currents, how the currents flow within the oceans. Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, you'll see it there. And so you literally, if you were just to build a boat, build a ship, and just kind of put it in the water, it will find itself caught in these currents and it'll travel according to those arrows. So if you look at the Mediterranean, Africa, right above the Africa is the Mediterranean. If you come out of that in between Africa and Iberian Peninsula, which is today's Spain and Portugal, you'll hit a certain current. I can't point to it, but you'll hit a certain current and it'll flow down and around and take you right into the Caribbean. Then it'll circle up the American coast, the United States coast, and then circle back around, back toward Europe, like a circle. So that's how the currents are flowing. That's important because here's what they did. They said Nubia built ships. We're talking about ancient Kemet, ancient Kush. They built ships and sailed to the Americas. Not that difficult. They said the currents, even if you didn't know you didn't want to know how to navigate, it would automatically take you there. So they tested the theory. One of the scientists, I believe he was from Sweden, built this ship right here from materials in ancient Kemet and Kush in today's time. So all those materials come from that particular area. They built that ship called the Ra 1. Ra 1. R-A and then the number 1, Ra 1. They built that ship. And then they sailed this same ship all the way to the Americas just using the currents. It took them straight to the Americas, straight to the Caribbean. Ra 1. They even one of the what do you call it? The paddle? One of the paddles, is it called paddle? I'm not a a Navy merchant guy, but I think it was one of the paddles. But either way, it broke. It broke when they first put it in the water, but they kept going anyway, and the current still took them all the way to the Caribbean, into the Americas. Then they said, listen, that was one time. Do it again. Cool. So this isn't the exact ship, but it was similar to this. They called it Ra 2 and did the same thing. Once again, straight from Africa on that tip into the Mediterranean, hit the current, took them all the way straight to the Caribbean, into the Americas. Did it twice. Did it twice. And so that was called the contact period. Now, after that time period of the 25th dynasty, and they're saying that your ancestors from Nubia connected to the Americas, that's when you started to see step pyramids being built. So this step pyramid you'll see in Quetzalcoatl's, how do you say that? Quetzalcoatl, I think is how you pronounce that. In Mexico, and 3 other, there's a sun pyramid. There's different type of step pyramids called ziggurats. If you were here last week, you saw us also identify this right here. This ziggurat built in the Middle East by your ancestors. They had about 3, 4, 5 of these type of sun pyramids. This is the same type right here. And when you look at the time frame they were built, it was during the contact period, when those particular soldiers who had the helmet, the Olmec helmet, they came here, and then you saw these pyramids being built. Again, Sudan right now, Kush has had the most pyramids ever built. And so these are the same thing. Everyone putting that together? You had the Olmec heads, they had the helmet, Nubian helmets. Well, how did Nubian folks get to Mexico? We saw the currents, built ships, came on the current, sails right to it. During that contact period, during that time, we see pyramids being built. Well, who built the pyramids? Who's known to build pyramids? We see black folk have built pyramids. The most pyramids ever built were by black people. We see the same type of pyramid built in Asia, and it was built here. So we're putting all that together to understand, again, another piece of evidence of how the black folks were in the Americas. Y'all with me so far? I hope so. More connections here. More connections. Again, the helmets on the Olmec heads. Those helmets are Nubian soldier helmets. We see Egyptian statues in San Salvador. So outside of San Salvador, underneath the water, they had Egyptian Kemetic statues used both in ancient Kemet and Kush. You had false beard usage. We were the first to do that. Black folks, false beards. The use of green emerald stone. When someone passed away, you put a green stone in the mouth of the deceased to help prolong a long afterlife and keep them safe in the afterlife. That was the ritual. That same ritual that you found in Nubia and in Kush, those areas, you see that same thing practiced in the Americas with this group. Mummification. First time you see mummification is in Tasseti and other areas. Then, of course, the most popular is ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, mummification. You find that same thing happening in Mexico and Peru. In this side of the world, it's the same thing. You see the embalming mixture in Peru, identical with Kemet. Mummified dogs, Nubia mummified dogs. You see that in Peru. Hieroglyphics, the Meta Neter. You see the same type of hieroglyphic found in Kush and in Kemet during that time period. The 4 Horus jars. We'll get into that later, but that's when you take certain parts of the deceased and put them in 4 different jars and line up according to the cardinal direction. And that's what they're supposed to represent. That same practice you saw in Nubia and Kush, you see that in Mexico and Peru. Same thing. That word, I think, is trepanning, surgical procedure. So if you had a head injury, they had it to where they would, I don't know, the scientists say they would drill into your head to relieve pressure from that. So they would study the skulls, and they saw that they had the holes in the head, but there was no sign of infection or anything else. And there was healing parts, the healing bones on the part where they drilled a hole into the skull. So highly sophisticated procedure being done all the way back in that time. Because I'm here to tell you, I'm not drilling a hole in anyone's head. I'll just let you know. That's not my expertise. Just to, keep expectations low, Tyrone. You understand? Right. But those connect. Then they see Ra in bird form or the phoenix, sculpture of the Sphinx. You'll see that matching in Kemet. You see it over here. Their calendars and zodiac match. And again, the Ra 1 and Ra 2 voyages, showing you how, for example, they built those ships over there and how they would easily sail over here, or just only over a matter of time. So all these different connections, the migrations, right? The Olmec heads, all the artifacts in Monte Alban. We saw the pyramid connection, and we see all these elements here listed out, all talking about the Black presence in America before any of these other European nations or anything else had anything going on, period. Definitely before any type of slave time or anything like that. Black people were here. We established that we were not only here, we were the first ones to be here. So if that challenges parts of you, what do you mean we were the first people here? That's probably going to go against prior information that wasn't founded on evidence. This is evidence-based. So I'm hoping you'll make the switch and not suffer with cognitive dissonance. I'll keep going though. What does it all mean? That's what I was going over. We were the first ones here. North America, Central America, South America, the Caribbean. Black people. Same way we were the first in Asia. Same way we were the first in Australia. We haven't got to that yet, but that's evidence-based. Same way we were the first human beings ever on the planet. Oldest bones ever found on every single continent are of Black people. One more time. Oldest bones found on any continent are of Black folks. Scientific fact. Scientific fact. Again, you're not supposed to be subservient to any group of human beings on this planet. I don't care what's transpired. You're not supposed to do that. Not supposed to be like that. You know, there's that saying, I'm my ancestors' greatest, what is it? My ancestors' what? Biggest dream. I can't remember what it is. What's the saying, y'all? I'm my ancestors' biggest accomplishment. What's the saying? Biggest dream, whatever. But you're not that if you're operating in a subservient way, if you're subordinate. I wish we didn't have the delay so y'all can tell me what the saying is. Wildest dream, is that it? Ancestors' wildest dream? Anyway, I'm gonna get off. Ain't nobody helping me out. Y'all ain't typing nothing or nothing, but I tell you, Black people just leave you hanging. Yeah, but anyway, let's do some more. So we saw the migrations. We saw the evidence of the first civilization. Now we're fast forwarding now. Look at this. Abu Bukhari II. This is Mansa Musa. If you all know the king Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa, his brother, he sails to the Americas in 1311 AD, 181 years before Christopher Columbus. Columbus himself reports he acquired metal goods of West African manufacture from the Native Americans in that area. Right? Then he had skeleton remains dated close to 1311. They were found in the Virgin Islands. Wildest dream. Hey, appreciate it, McQuinn. Appreciate you. Y'all like 80 minutes late, but it's all good. And then not only did ancient Mali sail to the Americas, so did a kingdom that would take their place, Sungay. Sungay also sailed to the Americas, evidence-based. But just giving you some more connection to the Americas without any Europeans being involved and prior to them coming here. Then we have this right here. This right here represents, this is the maize or corn, a type of corn, but only found in the Americas. Why is this significant? Because the Yoruba took this maize right here, this corn, and converted it into pavement and paved all their roads. You'll find the Yoruba in Nigeria, mainly in that area. And so they've used it back in the 12th century, 13th century. They used it to pave their roads. So my question to you, where did they get the maize from if it's indigenous to the Americas? How did they get it? How did they get it? That means they would have to have sailed to the Americas. They had trade going on with indigenous people, with other Africans that were in that area, bringing that maize, that corn back to this particular region and converting it into pavement and then putting it on their roads. So another connection, evidence-based, of another African group finding their way to the Americas. All right, look at this. This is actually a cover of a book. I forgot the name of the book, but I have it at the house. I'll post it if y'all want me to. But this is just 3 particular brothers who found their way to Ecuador. I believe it's Ecuador. And they mingled into that particular society because there were other indigenous people who were there also. But they became the rulers of that particular kingdom. And someone, Miss Marquita, what you doing? And then someone painted their picture. But this is just more evidence of Black folks being in the Americas, and not only being there. They're not anyone's slave. They're not anyone's subordinate. They are running the show and dressed immaculately. I'm not sure if I would wear that today, but they're on point, right? Check them out. They're not playing games with you. All right, just saying. 7:52. I think we made pretty good time. Okay, so all of this. Why we do this, why we spread this information is a part of the Nguzo Saba, the Nia principle that's celebrated during Kwanzaa on that 5th day to make our collective vocation, our mission, our job, our number one priority, the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. You need to have an idea of what your greatness is, what you've done in order to restore yourself back to it. So we're trying to remind you, awaken you, provide this information, get you to look at things differently from how the Western world have shaped things so that you can get back to the standard that we have before all of this dark time took place. Getting you back to your traditional greatness. This is just a part of that wave, part of that move. Shout out to all the people who are invested in educating our people on who they really are. All the groups, all the sacrifice, the scholars who came before us, the people who wrote the books, who taught the programs, RIP, Dr. Negro Rashidi, and the rest, John Henry Clark. There's so many of them to name, but who dedicated themselves to helping us get in touch with who we really are. Discover this information. You're not going to find any of this information, any at all, inside the school system. You're not going to find it. So I'm not sure what your role is in helping us to restore ourselves, but I encourage you to get active if you're not active already. Help us get back to where we need to be as a people. Get excited about the information. Find out more. I'm going to enlarge my screen a little bit so that you can see some of the books again. Again, they came before Columbus is one book by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, right? There's another book talking about our presence in the Americas. Another one right here by Michael Bradley. That's a white guy. Dawn Voyage. So they can't say, oh, it's only Black people. Nah, everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. Here's another one, Leo Weiner, Africa and the Discovery of America. And then here's another one, the first Americans were Africans, all evidence-based. We're not talking about saying something just so we can feel good about something. Oh, we were kings. No, we were, but what we're saying is we have evidence to support what we're talking about. I'm not just making it up. Right. Q&A. Any questions? Any questions for me? I try to put those books up so you know where to get the information. Again, this is just a highlight, kind of get you hungry for more so that you will go out, buy the books, build your library, spread this information to your children, to your neighbors, to your friends, your family. Some of you might even be inspired to start a youth group or have some information that you want to share mixed with this. You can mix this information with so many different things. But any questions at all? Any questions? And I know there's a delay from the time that I say it and the time that you hear it, probably like a 2-minute delay. But let me know if there's any questions that I can answer before we sign off 7:55, and I'll come back to that. So next week, again, this is just highlights. Next week, we talk about the beauty, power, and intelligence of Black women. The beauty, power, and intelligence of Black women, the answer to the man's problems. The gateway to heaven for the Black man, come on, talk, is the beauty, power, and intelligence of the Black woman. Maybe the world would be better if we listened more and understood, come on, talk, the beauty, power, and intelligence of the Black woman. 100%. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow, just kind of understanding who she was throughout history, who she is, so that we can understand who our queens are right now and see them properly as queens and understand what role they played in our society, because we're the only society, we're the only culture, we're the only group that had a proper understanding of who the Black women, who women are, period. Every other group put them in subservient roles. You have sexism, misogyny, all of that coming from the Western world, where the leading philosophical foundation to try to pass off all this propaganda is men are logical and women are emotional. That's not an African philosophy by any stretch of the word. By any stretch of the, you know what I'm saying? It's not. There are emotions for everybody. There's logic for everybody, reasoning. But to just label one particular gender just so, emotional to where they're incapable or inferior, that's garbage. That's garbage. So next week, hopefully y'all can join us. We start at 7:00. Today we're a little behind. Forgive us, give us grace. It's all good. It's only Tuesday, but it's been a week. It's been a week. So I will see y'all next week. I don't see any questions. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Abibi for Hodie, African Liberation. And I'll see you good people next week on Tuesday. And let's be ready to go. This is going to be something. All right. So any comments, just leave them in the any questions or anything like that, leave them in the comments and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. All right. Y'all be easy. Hold it down.